If you're looking to fix your health and fix your life, then stay with us for a mental health changing session with Dr. Pat Boulogne as she makes sense of complex and challenging situations affecting your mind by finding a simpler way to move you forward with measurable results. Welcome to Beyond Diagnosis, a podcast to raise your awareness, decisions, and voice for alternative practices so you can take back control of your health. I'm Rita De Michele, your host, a mindset and empowerment coach, and the founder of the ONUS platform. Join me each week so you can create the health of your dreams. Welcome, Pat. Dr. Pat, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. And we've been having so much fun at pre-talk. It's just going to continue.
It is good. We've had a great chat and finding more about what you do and how you help people. And on that note, as a certified functional medicine practitioner and coach, in your opinion, what's going on with mindset and mental health these days?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with your gut. And and they know that depression, they know that anxiety, is driven by changes that happen in your gut. Most of your immune system is in your gut.
Mm,
So I always say, gut brain, gut face connection, because you wear, like, for instance, on your face, you wear your emotions, you wear what food you're eating, you wear, like, it's like people can look at you. That's why they go, "Are you okay?" Because they can see it,
yes.
and so, that, today I just think, our choices for food and the quality of the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the chemicals we use in our house, you got to read labels, and the
Mm,
gardening, you've got to read labels, and if you don't understand an ingredient, it doesn't matter if you can't say the name of it. What's more important is that you look at the side effects of it. And then you need to get cleaner. You need to make that conscious choice that I'm willing to do whatever it takes for longevity. And I don't just want to live long, I want to live great. Forget about living long unless you like living great, because it makes no sense to do it unless you have the both of those pieces of the puzzle together. So um, diet is the huge thing. I think diet is like the biggest culprit. We have environmental toxins, and some of us are in toxic, even in, personal, and work environments that are toxic, that, that emotion we take on, and it's got to go someplace in our body. It isn't like it happens in, like, you got to forget that it ever happened before. Because a lot of people bury emotions, like childhood traumas and other traumas that they have in their life. They'll store them in their body, and then, you wonder, like, why did you get sick? There's a woman who's like the third top ranked OBGYN in Boston that I used to refer patients to, and also was my OBGYN too. And my friend who went to go see her, this short story,
mm.
she's talking to her and talking to her, and she goes, "So why do you hate your husband so much?" And she never said, "We never talked about my husband." And she goes, "When she said that, I just realized that, oh my God, this is the 20th time I've had a yeast infection. It isn't like I'm doing something different." And she said, "It's an emotional connection." And she was so
Ah,
far ahead of her for a medical doctor. She was so far ahead of her realm, in that, and she always thought, she said to me one time, peace of mind is so valuable. It's just like I really, really bend over backwards so that my patients, her patients, and for me too, would have peace of mind. Because when you have peace of
mm,
mind, then you feel better. You can look at a mirror and you can say, like, I'm feeling pretty good today. I mean, you can see it on your face. You know that, right?
yes.
And,
Yeah.
like when you're 27, you can get away with no sleep, but when you're like over 35, and you don't get sleep, you look haggard. And you're thinking, like, oh my God, it's just like, is that, and then you've got, there are things that you do, to like buff that up, like eating, but it wears on you mentally.
It does. It does. That
Yeah.
tiredness, that relentless fatigue really does play a real factor into how you walk through your day.
Hmm.
mentally, how you react to people, how you accept situations. So is it like more related to epigenetics, or is there a genetic factor in
Well,
negativity and mental health?
well, my mentor, in functional medicine, always said, "You're not your DNA." And so, we think that, oh, because it's my family. Well, if you keep on eating the way your family's been eating forever, then you're going to have the same type of, problems that your family's had, and for like whether it's heart disease, whether it's diabetes, kidney disease, whatever it is, if you keep on eating the same way, then that gene pool is going to play out in a very specific way. Plus, if you add in that environmental toxin that I've already talked about, then you're like in a cesspool. So,
Yes.
in order to change that, if you want to change your constitution, what you need to do is you need to choose better doing this, what goes into your mouth.
So what you put
That's
in your mouth is
so
obviously
it's
going to
a
have a
deal.
huge impact on your
Mhm.
mental health and the way you see
Oh, for
life.
sure. It's just like, the gut brain connection is huge, and it's like when, and then people have, like, even like when you're looking at things that you can do that to improve that, like the cookware that you use, what's it coated with? You never cook anything that has Teflon. Prefer you never to use it, but you never use anything with Teflon on high heat because it leaches all those tetrachlorohydrocarbons, big word, into your food. It's just like they used to say years ago, like, oh, aluminum would leach into your food. Well, especially if you cook spinach in it, or kale, or, tomatoes, they are high in oxalates. So it leaches the chemical, like into your food. And everybody, I would say, I don't know about Australia, I've never looked at the stats, but everybody in the United States has exposure to heavy metals.
Oh, same here.
You know,
Same here.
yeah,
Yep.
you know,
Especially I've heard, just touch on that with when you, because you mentioned cookware. I've read that now there's this big craze, and even I have one, the air fryers now, but they are all non-stick inside, and people are now saying, well, the air fryer goes up to such a high heat, up to 200, well,
oh, for sure.
Celsius here. Um, you're leaching all the chemicals out of that coating and into your food.
Oh,
So,
for
which, is such a shame because the air fryer is so handy. But if it's going to affect your health, it's not worth using.
Well, right. You have to ask yourself, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to invest in your health? Then you might have to do things like, the old-fashioned way,
Mm,
like use the stove top to like heat up your food, for instance, and then make sure you always use like BPA free type things because BPA leaches into your system and it's an estrogen disruptor. Some people wonder why they have, breast cancer, or like, where was my exposure? Nobody in my family had it. But, we wear bras that are toxic, and so if you're not wearing cotton, it's just like, and who can get a good bra that's cotton? I mean, maybe there's one that exists. I really haven't run into it. But, but you like, those, what your clothes have on them, goes into your system also,
Is
and
that mainly for new clothes? Does it ever wear off the clothes? Like you've had clothes, you've washed them, you've had them for a year or two. Does it ever dissipate, or is it always there?
well, I used to think that it did that, but and I had these like three favorite shirts of mine that had a lot of stretch in them.
Yes.
All of a sudden, they started falling apart. The stretch got
Yes.
stretchy, you know, and then, and I'm thinking, like, when did that happen? Because I've only hand washed them. I never dried them in the dryer, and I never dry black in the dryer. But it's just like one of those things that I learned if you want to keep your clothes black, because you know how they have a tendency to bleed. Although Italian clothes don't have the tendency to do that are black. But but I just found that, I just wash them inside out and I don't put them in the dryer and I let them air dry.
Right.
And um, so but I think that, ideally, you have to really think about what you're using to wash them with.
Yeah. What I like about what you said about all of these toxins is it's not just a matter of reading the labels and realizing you've bought something with a name that you can't pronounce or numbers that you don't recognize, and you think, oh, maybe that's not good for me. It's about doing the research of what those names, what are the effects that they're having on your body. A lot of
Right.
people just look at the label, but they're not doing the research. That is such a good point, that really we need to go that one step further and take that ownership and responsibility of what we're putting into our body.
Well,
Because then that has, like you're
there-
saying, has the direct effect with our
what
mental
people
health.
For sure. What people can do is they can, get a binder like this if they don't like using the computer, and they can write the word down and they can get online and they can look up the side effects of, like sodium benzoate. And so sodium benzoate, we talked a little bit about this before, as sometimes you see it in natural products. There's nothing natural about sodium benzoate. It's a
Mm,
man-made product. It doesn't exist without, it being formulated by a man. And so um, that's one of the things like to know, and also to know what like, things are in there that, it's just like, okay, you can even put it in Chat GPT. Here's all the ingredients. Are any like, what are the side effects of these? I
yes,
mean, that might be the fast way to do it. And then you can copy and paste it and print it out. But I think if you actually read through each one of them, there's some things that you would never use. It's
yes,
just cellulose that they put in like Parmesan cheese. It's sawdust. Who eats sawdust? And it's just like it's just like I don't have any Italian, relatives, but I'm sure if I did, they'd be rolling over in their grave. Just like who, like, that having
you,
that fresh grated cheese like means a lot. So if you have like if you see cellulose on something, at least in the States, because the States doesn't have, there's like 42, I think, or 142 chemicals that are used in the States freely that are banned in Europe. So I always go by the European list. It's like, if it's banned there, I'm not eating it. And
yes.
that and it's just like, and why is it that it's okay to use here?
Yeah, they're a
So
lot stricter. They're a lot
well,
stricter there with what
yeah,
they
and
allow
also,
to go into their
and
food.
also like in your digestion, right?
Mm,
You're eating foods that, are aggravating your system and destroying. You only have one cell layer. And it isn't a tube that goes from here and comes out the in the bottom. There's like it's convoluted, and it's convoluted for a good reason because the foods that you eat should churn and they should be absorbed in certain places. Some foods should never be absorbed until the end of the intestinal tract, and some of them are absorbed beforehand, but because people's guts get damaged, they absorb these micronutrients and macronutrients through the wall, and the wall gets damaged, and it's only one layer thick. So it separates and the food goes through, and then it gets in the blood system, and then it has to go to the liver. This is the scary part. It goes to the liver, and then in the liver, what the liver does to it is job is to detoxify. It's not, it does, never detoxify a liver. You tonify a liver and so that the liver can detoxify better. So when you get to that point in that for the liver, if it starts to get overwhelmed, then it starts to store it in blood, brain, bone, and fat. That's why if you eat something that's not great for you, it isn't like all of a sudden you got, oh my God, I have this exotoxin in my body. It's like it builds up and it finds your weakest link. So if your weakest link it's usually first fatty tissue, and then it goes, blood, brain, bone, and fat.
mm,
And it's like that's where toxins are stored in your system. So, and the problem, and the reason, another reason why it happens is if the gut's damaged, then those toxins go back into the gut because ideally they're supposed to end up in the toilet.
yes,
And so when they don't, and they keep on recycling again and again, and the liver gets overwhelmed, the liver does store them in blood, brain, bone, and fat. And blood and brain, that's deep.
yes,
And so, and a lot of times people, like they don't understand it, or they like, oh, I've always eaten this. And it's like, well, like, keep on eating it. It's early death. Because, it's not the one time exposure, it's the accumulation of the issue.
that
And
makes
that,
so much sense. And you can, from what you're saying, you can hear that those chemicals, like you say, in the cumulative effect, that when they go into the brain, do they cause inflammation, and inflammation can contribute to those mental health issues, to feeling low mood, which leads to negativity? So when someone's trying to deal with a negative attitude or a negative outlook on life, and somebody's saying to them, just think positive, just think positive, that's like saying to someone,
Some people
just
might just
don't be
sit down and
depressed.
right. It's just like, get over yourself, you
Yeah, get over
know.
yourself. Well, how can you if you've got this flood of
Toxins.
toxicity going to your
Right.
brain, causing, like, I
Well,
would assume, a chemical imbalance?
because you don't feel good, you
Mm,
know. So if you don't feel good, then like you're not going to digest your food well, and you're going to come across as being very iffy or edgy, as they say in Boston. So you want to, it's just like when you have that, you're thinking like, and someone goes like, why would it feel like I've got a black cloud goes everywhere with me? And it's just like, well, because you've got to be, you have to have that one day that you've had it and just say, I'm not doing this anymore. So when you start to think that negative thought, you're going, cancel.
mm.
You've got to talk. You've got to get control of the lizard brain. There's three brains: the lizard brain, the mammalian brain, and the conscious brain. The lizard brain is the seven F's or the five F's, like fornication, food, fighting, and that type of thing. It's the one that you want to work when a car pulls in front of you and you slam
Yeah.
on the brakes. You don't want to go like, oh, look at that car's pulling in front of me. Bang. It's like you don't do that. You immediately, that's the lizard brain. But the lizard brain is also one that derails you because it talks to the mammalian brain, which stores everything that's ever happened to you in your life, all
Mm.
your emotions, everything, like the bad date, that I had when I was 15 years old. It's just like it's there. And so when things get, if you have a similar experience, your body will react chemically in the same way it did when it had the trauma.
Wow.
So you've got to have command. If you can command the lizard brain or the primitive brain, to the conversation that you're having with it, then you can control other things because you have to think like it needs to be a win-win, you know. And then the mammalian brain also is, I always say, it's the holy grail of marketing for business because what it does is it talks to your pain point and then talks to you how to get to your good point. And then the conscious brain, which we're talking with right now, it's just like that's the one that does the affirmations, or the things. There's a name for it. I can't think right now, but even instead of say like, I am healthy, vital, active, successful human being, you would say, why is it that I am healthy, vital, active, successful human being? And then all of a sudden your mammalian brain goes, oh yes, I know why. And it goes to answer that positive question,
That's an
so
interesting
it's
point.
just like,
So ask it as in a curious. You're curious. Why is that? Why is it that I'm
yeah, why is he like
that?
that?
Why is it that I'm healthy, happy, and vibrant?
Like, why is it that I always attract, a lot of abundance? And I'm always around people who are a lot of fun. Why is it, that I get all these deals for traveling? It's because I love to travel, and but that conscious brain saying that to the mammalian brain makes the mammalian brain ante up to be more positive.
Mm,
So if you want to even have better results, do it when you get up in the morning and do it when you go to bed at night because the lizard brain's already sleeping.
yes.
And so we don't want him to chit chat, and then he starts going like, oh yeah, it's just like, what would you ever want to like, a girlfriend of mine just decided that she was going to start dating again, after like 8 years. I said, what was it after 8 years? Like, why wasn't it a month or something like that? She said, I don't know. I just got up and just said, I'm ready to go date again, and she said, and then I said that every morning
Mm,
as like, why is it, that dating for me is so easy? And she's met like, 5 or 6 guys like in a very short period of time. And I'm thinking, I go, you should teach people how to do that. And also for things like manifesting money, manifesting a job, manifesting better relationships. Because when you're in that mode and thinking, then you're thinking win-win. How can we all do this together? We're all, one for all for one. And
yes.
And then, if someone's really bothering you, the best thing to do is just bless them for their highest good and be gone.
Yes.
You know,
What about someone who's actually a little bit like any listener listening to this who's further along, maybe a bit deeper into depression or mental health issues, and just don't have that ability to have that, it's almost like that dialectic conversation with themselves to try and lift themselves out just by even doing what you're saying. What's possible for them?
well, I would tell them to move.
That's a good point.
It's just like, if you're don't eat sugar, ever put it in your mouth. And take the things out, just like, do you really want to be healthy? Because if you really want to be healthy, you know, even though you say, like, I'm struggling and I can't do that, you can always do something one day. There's always something that you can do to improve your life every day.
Mm,
So if somebody has, it's just like, if you got this, um, I'm at this Airbnb right now. This woman loves sugar, and it's just like she also has all the signs and symptoms of pre-diabetes, and I just, like, I've had these conversations, like, I only have them once, you know, but the thing is that people know that, but they still do that
yes.
because their need to satisfy the inner child is bigger than their need to survive.
Wow. That's a really good point.
And so if you feed, it's just like, so if you want to feed the inner child, if you had a child, you wouldn't poison them.
Yes.
So why are you poisoning yourself? And, like, and sugar was originally a drug. I mean, it's like, and it's even more addictive than they say of cocaine. But wouldn't know. I personally have any. I never had any personal experience. I never asked anybody those kind of questions in my office. It just wasn't the time and space to do that. And but I think that people have to look at, like, they have to reframe how they look at themselves. I had a
Yes.
person in my office who was very depressed. I mean, when she talked really slowly and very softly, And so I started letting her husband come into the room when she got adjusted,
Wow.
and I said to her, I go, so tell me what's really going on. Like, why do you sit on the couch all day long? And I said, do you feel like your husband's has you're not in control of yourself anymore? So you just gave into it? I'm just curious. I said, you can say anything. Whatever you say to me says to me. I said, I just don't want him in the room when I'm adjusting you because I want it to be your time in your space. So if you wanted to lay on the table and go like this, I go, you could do that. And she started laughing.
Yes.
I asked her, I said, so anytime that you're feeling depressed, think about me doing that. I said, it'll make you laugh all the time, you know? And she just said, and she says, and he told me that, when he says, we got an appointment at Dr. Pat's, she goes, she's like up and moving around to get ready to come. So I go, if you ever want to just, like, because she lived close, if you ever want to just, like, get out of your house and you can walk over here and get exercise, I've got all these really cool magazines in my waiting room, and you can sit in there and read magazines if you want. I don't care. It's fine. You can hang out. I have a nice office. You can, go do that. And
Yes.
I said, you can't stay here at lunch. And I said, or when I close, but I go, but you can be here when it's open anytime. It's fine, and it's always good to have someone in the waiting room. It looks like I'm busy. And
Yeah.
so she like, and she just chuckles. She goes, oh, you're so funny, Dr. Pat. And she goes, I wish I had your sense of humor. I said, you do. Because if you didn't have my sense of humor, you wouldn't laugh,
Well, that's a good point. It's
you
just that
know.
it's buried under a whole lot of um,
Oh, stuff. I
misery,
mean,
and the way they're obviously viewing life. And for anybody who doesn't understand why Dr. Pat said adjust is because I didn't actually introduce that part that you are actually a chiropractor as
that's a good
well.
point.
Yes,
That's
otherwise people think, what's she talking
a good
about?
point.
Yes.
When I work with trauma with people or of like whatever trauma is, like as a general term, I had a girl who I was working in an event to about a year and a half ago and near Orlando. And so, when she was there, when she opened her mouth, everybody cringed. I mean, literally, it was like this because she was so, instead of being depressed, she was aggressive, but that was to me as a form of depression. So, and I was thinking, I can't listen to this girl for the whole weekend. I got to have a
Absolutely.
conversation with her. So I walked up to her and asked her if I could help her out, and I wanted to give her a compliment. She goes, "What do you want to do that for?" I said, "Well," and I said, "The reason I want to do that is because I love your tenacity. And I just wanted to tell you that if you used it in a more positive way, you could get anything you wanted." I said, "Would that interest you? Because I can help you do that." And so she said, "Sure." And I said to her, "So why are you so angry?" And so she said, and then she told me, and she had a breakup with somebody that was really bad, who made a very, very, very significant lie to her. And so I said to her, "Okay." And I said, "So I go, let's find out who you're really mad at." And so I asked where I could go work with her. This is funny. I asked where I could go work with her. Not that what she had going on was funny, but this circumstance. And so we walked, they said, you can use the closet. Now, Florida, most places their walk-in closets are the size of a small bedroom. And so we walked in the closet and we closed the door and I'm talking to her and we didn't have a lot of time. So I just thought I would just cut to the chase and do this technique that I know for helping people rid those emotions so that she could go live her life full out and live up to her full human potential, because that's my goal when I'm working with people, no matter what I'm doing, the facial exercises, whatever I'm doing. And so I just said to her, and I thought about it, and I said, "What happened when you were 7 years old?" And it's a number that came to me, and I don't know where it came from, but it's just like, and so when I have that intuition, I just follow it. And she goes, "My mother left."
Oh,
And I said, "She ever come back?" And she said, "No." And do you talk to your mother now? She goes, "Yes." I said, "How's your relationship with her?" She said, "Sucks." It just was, it was just like bang. I go, "Okay." And so with a little bit of deep diving, as she went in there, she said she had neck pain. If you look on my LinkedIn profile, you can see her testimonial that's on there. And she had back pain and like neck pain. And so when we went through this process of identifying a person, place, thing, or an event that happened and who it was and where in your body it's stored, there's all these acupuncture points that are on the body, and some of them relate specifically to an organ system. And then in her case, I said to her, we did this program, but we're having this conversation and she's crying profusely. And, I said, "Keep on crying." And I go, "It's good for you. Doesn't it feel good?" Except that really screws your makeup up. I said, "But other than that," and I said, "You might have to go back down to," because this was for models and actresses, and so she just said, when she got done and we got done, and I said, "So how do you feel?" She goes, "I have no neck pain and I have no back pain." I
that's
can't believe
amazing.
I've carried that around for so many years.
Mm.
And I just felt like, isn't that cool? I said, I love this stuff. So when we went to walk back in the room, because it was like a big family room, there was now about 40 people in there. And I said, when I came out, I said, "We're coming out of the closet." you know, and she started laughing. But the thing is that all these people who were there who know her, they just looked at her and they're like, "Oh my God, you look so relaxed."
Wow, they couldn't believe
It's
it.
just like that whole emotional trauma that she's carried on and other things that happen in relationship to that, and then, I saw her later on at we had a big cast party that night, and she comes running up to me. She goes, "You are my new best friend." I said, "I'm not your best friend." And I go, "I just helped you." And she goes, "You can be my new best friend. It's okay." You know, I know you're frightened that, but everything she said was so negative before. Now she's being funny. you know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so, and it was such a pleasure to see that with her, and she wasn't in a good place in her life at that time. She got to a point where she was homeless, living out of her car. She now has an apartment, she's got income, and she's got furniture, and she has buying power, and she just said, like, I just don't know what would have happened if I didn't see you that day. She goes, like, I was on the spiral and I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. So, but when we look at, like, why is it that I keep on hitting the wall? Why do I keep on sabotaging myself? And if you can find out what that reason and where that's buried at, then you can go through a process that helps release that. It isn't like it's going to go away. It isn't like, oh, I'm going to forget about the whole thing. But at least when you think about it, your body's not responding to it like the mammalian brain does, and make you sicker and sicker and sicker. And so it's just a very cool technique. I had my mentors in San Diego who taught me that. And I mean, I just, like, when I've opened Pandora's box many times in my office when I started to do that technique on somebody, and, like, you never know what you're going to get. So I had to really stop doing it when I was actually trying to do work during the daytime, because if somebody has I'm always like, honey, we're doing this. Like, you're not going anyplace. We're going to fix this. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to get this handled. And I'd walk in my waiting room going, if anybody wants to reschedule, you can reschedule or come back. And they're always curious, like, who do you got back there? None of your business. I would let them out the back door so they didn't have to go out the front door.
And
But,
get grilled.
but it was such a pleasure to see, and it was like, even, I've had husbands come in and say, like, thank you very much for giving me my wife back. I mean, but
Mm.
I'm thinking, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who's your wife,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's just, it was when I was in like active practice, and I was doing that, I didn't realize how much power that really had for people, and
Yes.
how, like, forgiving that was. Because even when, in the girl in the closet thing, I made her, I said, so I go, so what are you going to do about forgiving yourself? I mean, it's just, and every person's different that I work with that. So it's just like, you never know what alley you're going to go down. I had a girl had a splotch on her leg that was about maybe 2.5, 3 inches wide at the widest part of it, and it's kind of tailored out. So how long have you had that? She goes, oh, like maybe like 15 years. She's 40, like 15 years. I go, you didn't have it when you were born? She says, no, so it's not a birthmark. No, what do you think? I go, when did it start? I go, how old were you? And I was working in somebody else's office to cover for them for a vacation. I said, I go, are you open to, like, finding out where that comes from? Because this affects your mental health. And when you look in the mirror and you kind of go and you keep on seeing something you don't like on your face, it makes you feel insecure. It's
Yes.
just like, so how do I camouflage it? What do I do about that? And
Yes.
so when in her case, like when we went through that process, I was working with her virtually, and I just, at some point in time, she was so irritated, I thought I was in front of her, she'd strangle me. And she was so irritated. And I said, I don't care if you hate me. And I said, but I want to know, who do I remind you of right now, your mother or your father? And she was like, phew. There was no sound. You could have heard a pin drop 3 states away. And she just said to me, she goes, my father, and so I said, let's talk about your father. Let's take that edge off. Let's take the hold that he has on you off, so that you can be around in that situation and it doesn't affect you. You know,
Yes.
it's just like,
That's
because, and people have that all the time. And they, so I sometimes think when people have those situations, that their mental wellness, it's just like, they've been letting the lizard brain chat too much, you know, and then like, and which makes them a million brains. Oh yes, I remember that. Yes, and that happened too, and then that happened too. So when something good happens, your mammalian brain's going like, and the lizard brain's going, oh no, we know what that is. It's just
mm,
like, we don't want to interact. We don't want to be, a big mouth and open our mouth and say something, because we're going to get yelled at, and we get yelled at, we feel bad. So I just think you should do the yelling. You don't have to worry about feeling bad. And so and like, being able to, like, to say things, and so I used to help patients, like, come up with and advocate for them for Like, what do you want to ask your doctor? Because people are intimidated by their doctors,
They are. They are.
and it's just like, this is what you ask them. You go, how many minutes do we have?
Mm.
And you go in with your list, and just say, this is what I want to tell you. They interrupt you, say, excuse me, I'm talking now. I'm paying for the session, and it's just like, and then you tell them just like, I need to know this, this, and this, and this,
What are
in my,
some of the good questions? I'm very much about this podcast, and everything that I do is very much about empowering people to advocate for themselves. That those doctor's appointments are for you. They are your appointment. You're paying for them, and you shouldn't really walk away without an answer because you don't
well,
pay for a service somewhere else and accept that you don't get an answer. What are some questions that you can um, tell our listeners that would be good ones to ask a doctor about? Just general ones. We don't get specific because you don't know what someone's dealing with. But what are some of the general questions to go deeper and have them so they can advocate for themselves?
you first have to make your presence known. You're either an alpha or you're a follower. So if you're going to have a conversation with a medical doctor, you want to let him know that he needs to speak to you on your level. And if he can't speak to you on your level, then he needs to get an interpreter, even if you speak the same language, because you have to be able to walk away with the understanding of what he said. And so many people, who, and I'm sure people can relate to this. They get home, their wives go, so what did he say? Just like, he said, I'm all right.
Absolutely. You get
It's
that
going
all
to
the
take
time.
$100 to go see this guy, and he's all right.
Mm,
It's like, that's what he said. So, and then educate yourself on, it's just like when you go in there and just say, I just want to let you know, because you have Google, right? And
yes.
so you say, here's my symptoms, that I have. And when you do a differential diagnosis, what are the possibilities based upon my symptoms here? And you can even put those in Google.
Right.
It's just like, I have the following symptoms. What are my possibilities? Because if you buy the Merck's manual, which has all the symptoms and diseases, et cetera, in it, you will see the same thing again and again and again and again. That's why it's called a differential diagnosis. It's a working diagnosis of what they come with first. So, I was in a doctor's office and I was paying for a cash out of pocket for that visit. Because I wanted to get a second opinion about something. And this guy, when he was in there, I just asked him where he was from. I mean, it's just something friendly. And he turned around, and he told me he's from Albania. And I said, oh, I've never been to Albania. He goes, what do you want to go there for? I mean, he went off on a tangent. And I just got up and I said, well, I don't think this is going to be a good fit today. And I'm sorry that, that I wasted the time here, for you, or you wasted the time because you just didn't ask me a real question. And I said, so I'm going to leave. And he goes, wait a minute, what are you going to leave? So when I said, I'm leaving, I'm not having a conversation with you. This meeting's over. And because I'm thinking, I'm paying for it, I'm dictating it. And so when I went up to the
Exactly
front
right.
desk to let her know that I'm not paying for it, she goes, but you owe us $400. I said, I don't owe you anything. And I said, I didn't have an exam. I started to have a conversation and the doctor got rude, crude, and totally unattractive. I'm not talking to him,
That's
and
that's the confidence that people need to develop. So,
right.
especially when you have um, negativity, or you feel that you have negativity, or you have depression or low mood, those conversations can be difficult for someone to feel that they've got the courage and self-esteem to
For
have with their
sure.
doctor.
For sure.
So, how
So
can they start making a paradigm shift with their mindset?
go in with questions that are already written down, and just say, it's like when, I went into, I needed a new, like general doctor, and I went in to go meet her. And so I went in and she's, asking me these questions. And she goes, well, when's the last time that, you had a mammogram? I said, I don't get mammograms, I get thermograms. And she said, well, they're like, and I just said, already read the research. Next question. And,
Mm,
because you have to be your voice. You have to, it's like if it was your child that the doc and like doctors, like, they're human beings too. So if you like imagine them with mustard all over their bodies, it's just like, then you're talking to somebody who's like your friend, or to ask them to take their white coat off. You're only having a conversation. It isn't like you're breathing germs all over the place. There's germs
Mm,
everywhere anyway. One of the most toxic places to be is a hospital, and
absolutely. Absolutely.
and right. And so having them just like go in with, and if they're having a hard time talking, just go in with your message, right, and just hand it to them. And all you have to say in the beginning of it, I need these questions answered before I leave this office.
That's
you know
perfect. A good suggestion,
it's just
yes.
like, I'm not interested in, if they start talking, to say, can we, I'll just say politely, excuse me, can we stay on topic? you
Yes,
know
yes,
you know it says in and then when you go like, and if they say, it's like, it's a lot, like, they'll go like, how are you doing? How you doing is such a vague conversation.
mm,
It's like asking you like, well, it's sunny outside. And you can look outside. Yep, it's sunny. You can both agree it's sunny. But it's just like, I don't need to talk about it.
mm.
It's just like, I'm going in with a specific problem. I have stomach aches. I don't feel good. I'm mentally fatigued all the time. And like, I hate my job. I hate my husband. I don't want to be a mother. I hate all these things. It's just like, and then having them give you a medication doesn't necessarily resolve the problem. You would be better off, talking to somebody who could adjust your food intake, and that type of thing. And also, like, but if you just have to do your research before you go in. And if you have
Yes.
access to AI, use AI. Just, I'm going in the doctor, these are my symptoms. What questions should I ask him?
Yep. We're so much more fortunate now that we have all of that. And
Oh, for sure.
in regards to somebody who may have um, lower self-esteem or anything like that, how can our audience listening today learn to start building resilience? Because you kind of
Start
need
doing things
resilience
that
to
you
move
like.
forward. Sorry?
you know do things that you like. Do what makes you happy. If making you happy is like cooking dinner, cook dinner. If making you happy, is like, playing with your dog, then play with your dog. You know, if making you happy, if you do what makes you happy, then, for instance, if you like to write or you like to draw, get a piece of paper out, and write down one word. It doesn't matter if you like to write and you can't. I mean, I have writer's block. I mean, I wrote 4 books. It's like that. I have writer's block. It's like, I have, when, I've actually, they've been, when they were published, I was thinking, God, did I write that? I'm like going back and reading it. I can't believe I wrote that. And, and then, award yourself, celebrate everything that's positive in your life. you
Mm.
know a baby smile, celebrate it. It's like, oh my God, doesn't that makes me feel so good? And if someone goes, why is that? You go, because it does. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody.
I suppose
Nobody.
gratitude sort of goes hand in hand with that. Like gratitude, being grateful for things helps build your resilience. Is that right?
It will, because, like, even if you go, I have people walk. So if you can only do 10 minutes walk, then the first minute you're breathing, and I have people pinch their fingers while they're walking, so they're breathing like, breathe in and touch your fingertips. These are all the points for your acupuncture points for your heart, for your small intestine, for your pericardium, for your heart, for your circulation, for your lungs and your large intestine. It's just like first thing in the morning, you want to stimulate those points. And that's an easy
So
way
you're
to do
actually
it.
touching, for the listeners,
Yeah,
you're actually touching
both
the
of them.
tips of your fingers,
Yeah.
your
Yeah. And
fingertips.
they're called Jingwell points. And in Chinese, they're important, because either the meridian ends there or the starts there. And so the
Yes.
meridians from the hands go up and go to the neck, and to the face. And then they go from the face down to the feet. And from the feet, they come back up and go to the chest. And from the chest, they go out to your hands. It's a very, very like, it's like my big realization about Chinese medicine and why it's all connected like that. I'm going like, wow, that's just so cool.
Yes.
When you realize that. But your finger, your toes, the tips of your toes, and also your fingers. But when you're walking and you just do 1 minute of breathing like that, you just, for me, what I tell people to do, if you're walking and you see a stop sign, halfway down the block, just walk till you see the stop sign in doing that. And then you can go into what am I grateful for? you
Mm,
know and so I'm grateful for being on the show with you, and our great conversation we had before we started. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for like all these things, and it's like the more that you're grateful, the more it elevates your energy.
yes.
So when something off happens, go take a shower, get those electrons off of you. And if you go take a shower, then you can get like, wash up, and you can start your day all over again, and you can say like, wow, I feel so good. And the more you say, I feel good, there's songs out like, I feel good, and when you say that and you talk to yourself, that's the part of the lizard brain. Cause now I'm in that, well, it's my conscious brain right now, but if I'm saying I feel good, then I have only the opportunity to live up to that moment. And the more I say that I feel good, the more you'll feel good. And then you can elevate it even more. You can say, I feel great, you know,
Yes.
especially on days that you don't, when I first started learning to do that, there's days that I kind of went, I was in chiropractic school and I was so overwhelmed with how much stuff I had to study. Many times I just told somebody, I'm going to quit. I'm just not going to do this anymore. And they went like, let's go get a taco over at Taco Max, this place that was around school. And just like, so, it's like, what are you gonna, oh, I'm gonna have a tostada. It's like sort of eating a tostada. You're going like, isn't this food make you happy? That's what a friend said to me one time. Isn't this food making you happy? You know? And it's like, and I was like, well, yeah, it does. So you're gonna quit? No. It just, and because you just figure it out. There's always, if there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
And And then if you honor that, like I feel good if you start every day off, because you have in control what happens in the rest of the day from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Everything's up to you. It's not a big burden, it's a blessing. So if you say my day is a blessing, I feel good, I feel happy, I feel terrific. When someone comes up to you and say, like, what do you got that sweater on for? And just like, whoop, thanks for sharing that with me. and,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you just move on. And you can actually either mentally or physically just take your hand up and push their energy back.
Mm,
It's just like, that negative energy doesn't have a hold on you
yes.
unless you let it. And just like you just push it back,
Creating
and
boundaries. I guess
yeah,
creating boundaries really helps. And it
yeah.
sounds like to shift into a more positive and energetic mood or vibe or
Well, if you
change
think
your,
it, you
it's
can,
just small steps.
yeah, you
Doesn't
can
have
think
to
it,
be
you can
huge.
conceive it. Just to, and for sure, there's a rule that I have called the rule of one. And the rule of one is like, start your day with, like, walk, if you're going to go walk, walk, like 2 steps if you have to, turn around and come back. Next day, walk 3 steps. Next day, walk 4 steps. And start your day off. Make sure you drink enough hydration. Have your water in your BPA container and a straw so you can drink more water, because you should be drinking 50% of your body weight in ounces. And I know that we figured that out, that 16 ounces was 450 milliliters earlier,
Yes.
um, according to my bottle. It's not because I know it. And so if you have that and you're going, oh God, I'm supposed to have, like I weigh 150 pounds, I need 75 ounces of water a day. It's just like, so, you know, you don't want to go out and suddenly start drinking 70 ounces when you only been drinking 10. you
Yes.
know Go out and just like, decided like, you can, if you use a straw, then you will, trust me, be able to drink more water, and
Mm,
your body will like it. You'll sleep better, you'll think better, you'll feel better, you'll move better, you'll make better decisions just from that one thing for hydration, because you need it for your joints, your muscles. You need it so that your brain can detox and stay away from sugar. I mean,
yes.
just say,
It's
just say no.
addictive.
Just say thank you, but no thank you. It's like your friends who like, oh, let's go and let's like they order dessert, and they go, oh, just have one spoonful. No, you don't understand. I don't eat sugar, and I don't want sugar in my life because, you know, it makes me feel lethargic. It makes me feel spacey. It gives me ADDH, you know,
Mm.
and it gives me pimples. It isn't good for your skin. I can't think of anything that it's good for, and so because there's a sugar already in other things,
Yes.
and it's just like, or added sugar, even in meat, like like if you get turkey,
Process.
read the
Process.
label. You've got to read labels. That's the big thing. But
Yes.
start small. Just start with the rule of one. I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna do exercise. It's raining outside. Well, I'm gonna walk up my steps, going up to my second floor, and I'm gonna walk back down. That's one.
Mm.
Next day, do two. You know, and it's like when you start doing an exercise. I decided I wanted to do a back bend. Remember doing back bends?
Yes.
All those gymnastic people who are like, when they do them, I was going, oh my God, like, how do they do them now? So the other day I decided I was going to try to do one again. I haven't done one in like 40 years. And so I went like, oh my God, I have no upper body strength. So I've done a modified one because I want to get my arms strong enough so that when I press and push, I actually am pressing and pushing from power. So it's just like I'm taking that baby step. I didn't try to do 20 of them,
Mm.
I just did one, and the next I'm going like, oh my God. And I work out, I work my shoulders, and I walk, a minimum of 2.5 miles every day, so
Fantastic.
my watch, so my little thing tells me, and and so it's those things like that, and and I can see the change, in doing, what the things like sometimes we get used to our life so much that all of a sudden you realize, wow, I used to take niacinamide as a supplement, when I was 45. It's like you'll just wake up and thinking, why did I stop doing that? And you don't really have a good reason. You might have went on a trip, or you go on a trip, you're doing really good on your diet, you go on a trip, and because you're on a diet, you say to yourself, I owe this to myself. I
Mm.
had a client one time, the same person that had the spot on her leg, and eventually, by the way, ended up going to be small, you
Yes.
know, after she got her emotional stuff connected. And she did, we changed her diet a little bit. She calls me up and said, someone gave me a free ticket to go to Costa Rica. If they wanted this one, this prize, it was 2 for 1. And they asked me if I wanted to go. And she said, do you think I can drink when I'm there? And I just said to her, you can do whatever you want to do. You're an adult woman. I'm not your mother and I'm not your father. And I said, I know you think I'm your father sometimes. I said, but I'm not your father. But, and I said, so you put so much time and energy into self-care and loving yourself. I mean, look at the spot on your leg, it's much smaller, and I said, and look at where you're at. You paid me a lot of money to go from point A to point Z, you know
Yes.
and I said, so if you want to take a couple steps back or maybe have to start back at ground zero again, then drink,
Mm.
and I said, but know why you're drinking.
Yes, yeah,
It's
that's
not-
it, isn't it? It's
yeah,
actually being conscious of what we do, take responsibility for what we do, own what we're doing, and you can see why when we're carrying all this emotional baggage, we do develop dis-ease
yeah,
or conditions in our
right.
body, including mental health issues. So what are, to end the conversation, what are your favorite, just a couple of your very favorite lifestyle solutions that anyone can do for their mental health starting immediately?
Drink more water. Just don't drink it from the tap. Drink really good filtered water and make sure that you're getting enough hydration. If you want to lose weight, it's a great way to do that also. And it's very supportive of that. And I sound like like a broken record. Drink, drink, drink more water.
It is
And,
important.
put lemon in it if you don't like the taste of water. And the other thing is to move. You've got to move. One of the things I always see when I have my office, when I was seeing patients, very regularly, and even clients, is that when they get depressed, they don't move. they shut down and they go in their cave, so
Mm.
make your cave the world.
Yeah,
you know
fantastic. I love that.
and just give yourself a goal, like when you first start exercising, you don't like go out and run 5 miles, and it's just like, that's why, you have a coach. That's why you have somebody that you can be accountable with. Like find somebody who wants to walk with you.
Mm.
If no one wants to walk with you, then pretend you like, remember you're 5 years old, you remember you had a good.
Imaginary friend.
Yeah. So you can have an imaginary friend. It's like it's even better if you're walking in a city and you're talking to that imaginary friend because no one will come by you. It's a good way to get rid of people, by the way. And but that, like what the joke is. And so, but just go out and do things like you want to move, and if you want to sleep well, these are my 5 pillars of health. So if you want to sleep well, then you need to make your room dark as possible. Because I'm
Mm.
light sensitive, so it's just like if there's light coming through, when I lived in a big city, the people that lived across from me had the stupid spotlight that always came into my bedroom, and like I went and knocked on their door in the other building, like, can you turn that light in a different direction? It's coming directly right in, like, how about the parking lot? You can point it that in that direction, and they did, but it's just like you have to get your sleep. And if you can't, and also another way to fall asleep is just give your permission to self to do it.
That's a
You
good
know,
point.
because a lot of times people,
Yes.
and also I say to people, I said like, oh, I'm really worried about this. I go, you have to ask yourself, is there anything in God's green earth that I can do about that right now to resolve that? And if there is, get up and do it. If it's not, you know, dictate it on a phone, write it on a piece of paper, keywords, so you won't forget it the next day, because then it's there. It's not isn't going to get up and walk out of the room at the middle of the night unless you
Yes.
have a dice. But it's just so you have those pieces of the puzzle. And then you can look at it the next day. And it'll also give you a much fresher perspective. And if you go to sleep, you can also say like, oh, I've got this issue and this problem going on. If you close your eyes and think about and write it like you have on the chalkboard in front of you, and just say, I'm going to have a solution to that when I get up in the morning, and then give yourself permission to go to sleep. Play binaural beats, that will help you sleep too. But you want to play like delta, not delta, alpha, because delta is when you're up, and beta is when you're up, and so you want something that gives your brain to rejuvenate it, and it's relaxful. I mean, that's why like Beethoven and Mozart and all the music is a certain frequency, and everything is frequency. So there's a lot of, you see these sound beds that people are laying, all of a sudden they became famous, and where like 8 years ago, if you told somebody that you're going to go to jump in, cryo bath, that's something for someone to try to do. I haven't done it for my face yet, but when you go into a cryo bath where you're going into like ice cold water, you're thinking, I can't believe I'm doing this. And then you get used to it. And then you kind of like you're only in there for like 3 minutes. Then you get out, and you're going, and then all of a sudden, because what it does when you get out, your pores open and you're suddenly warm, the in circulation go up. People have told me that have gone into the booths that they have gone in and they have pain free, and then they're also sleep the best night's sleep they've ever had. So I haven't tried that, but I have done the bath part.
I heard
Um,
it's fabulous for your
yeah.
health.
And you can do it for your face too. Like you just put ice and water in a bowl, and then you like a big bowl, clearly,
Mm.
and then put your face in it, and let it see how long you do it. I haven't done that one either, but I'd like to do it because it's supposed to really, it rejuvenates and excites the fascia around the muscle to tighten up, and then you also have, like the collagen, when that happens, and it stimulates collagen production too. So
Fantastic.
it's cool. So I've got like a bunch of those tips, and, positive mental attitude, when someone says you can't, just say, watch me. You don't have to
That's
explain
the
yourself.
key, isn't it?
Yep.
Don't let people govern the way you're going to live your
Oh,
life
for sure. And,
and
and
put their negativity onto you. or their
Right.
limitations onto
That's
you.
why you put your hand and you push it back. You go, thanks for sharing it with me. You know, that's what I used to say before I was getting divorced to my husband. Thanks for sharing it with me. You
So,
know,
Dr.
and
Pat, you are the author of the book Why Are You Sick, Fat and Tired? So I'm sure that all our listeners can race out and grab that book because it will have everything that we've been talking about today, I assume.
primarily it's a workbook it's a workbook guidebook and an advocating tool. So if you take that, you know, like for instance, we're talking about what could you ask a doctor, right? If you take that book and you do the questionnaire in there, it will have a chart and you can chart out it has 11 organ systems. There's 12 chapters. There's one for male, one for female. That's why it's 11 organ systems. And when you answer that, you can see the pattern of your health, of what's going on with you right now. I recommend
Mm,
getting the book in paper, not on digital, because I can tell you, I have a lot of digital books on this telephone, and it's just like I haven't got to them yet, you know, and some of my books are like maybe like 45 hours, things like that. So, you know, I try to travel as much as possible so I can just listen to them while I'm driving. You know, but it's a workbook, guidebook, and advocating tool so that you can ask better questions, you know, and then it looks at your organ system so you can see where your weakest link is and where your strongest link. You want to know, it's not just good enough to know what's not happening. You want to know what's happening for you because you need that. You need that as your foundation. And it helps you know what your bottom line is, you know, and then you fortify what's high and so it balances out, you know, and that's the big part of that. You know, and then I coach from that book for people or in my bigger coaching programs. We go through that book and we look at, like, you know, what is your weakest link? You know, it's just like, why is it your weakest link? I'm always that's the why are you sick, fat, and tired? You know, because a lot of people have those symptoms and they just don't know why, you know, but if
yeah,
you
it's
look in
frustrating.
the 11 organ systems, somebody asked me one time and said, um, well, what do you do for myofibrosis? And I just said, well, and I said, you didn't read the book. And she said, I go read the book. And I said, I go and then get back to me. And then she said, what do you do for chronic fatigue? I said, you didn't read the book. Because all disease processes have one thing in common, you know, that is inflammation. And
Yes,
you've got to find
inflammation.
out where the inflammation's buried, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, or social. You've got to know where that is, because if you do that, it releases that, and then you can have financial freedom.
That's amazing. Dr. Pat, thank you so much for coming on the show. You have a wealth of information in so many areas. And for our audience, really get the book, have a read, book in if you feel that you have, any health or mental health issues. Please book in with Dr. Pat because she has so many solutions for you with a good dose of sense of humor to go along with it. And you do yourself a favor. Please, all of Dr. Pat's details will be in the show notes where you can book in with her, or learn more about what she does. Really, it's worth the investment. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
I would love to know, what was the biggest insight or aha moment you got from this interview? So you can now speak up, take action, and make informed decisions for your health. And if you like this episode, get instant access to your free ebook, Alternative Wisdom, Taking Back Control of Your Health, at life-onus.com.